was good that I did that. Now, I am getting everything up. I'm testing the audio. I'm testing the, getting it ready. It sounds good on YouTube. I, uh, I, sorry I'm late. I took me a second. Um, sounds good on D Live. Sounds good on Kick. Sounds good on Kick. I said, I believe. Yeah, sounds good on Twitch. X is up and sounds good. Sounds good on X as well. So we have all of those set up. Now I'm going to have to go into Cosmic Weave on Rumble and see how it's going. It sounds good too. So we're ready to go. I have to do my audio test. I'm going to run in and get me a cup of coffee and everything. I just wanted to get this set up and ready to go. I also want to apologize for starting a few minutes late. I had to pull my information up and get it ready for the show. So, with that being said, I am going to mute out, put some background music on, and then I'll be right back. Sorry about that, Ron.
Awakening from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. Awakening from history, awakening from duality. The liberation of the human soul to consciousness of the one and all. The activation of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man. A new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing into unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery. The mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Theophilus, this slur, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus, this the distal sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and riving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and riving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Hardly had his Hail Highness heard the easy hedgehog when he hit the humming bee by the hunter who had horrible beetles in the human hall. I love to hear the horse's hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard. I'm hurrying around to hunt up hogs. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, thistle sifter.
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his starborn accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waits at his command. Empire stretched from bow, big stones to Mayan sand. Monolith stacked like Legos blocks no crane could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven, stories untold. Ages of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Gold turned to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Vessels of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, to coals and awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of modern princes of plasma. Their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis where gods walked the sea.
Watch the fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hummed warnings, but they ignored the signs. Skies split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sang screaming, but blueprints survive. Baalbek's foundation, stones that defy modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they align the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, cold attention, all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of law, 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis where gods walk the sea.
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, organ fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones and the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis taller than gods, crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammals shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up Nepistim, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds, stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset, scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist, cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes, built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now desert bones whisper where cedars once soared. Man's just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math, a codex purge. Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math, a codex purge. Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tijuana, their codes etched in awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of law. 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea.
All right, I am back. Let me put that freaking video back up that I had on there for the background, and we will have things set up and ready to go. Now, before I get started, I do want to say that, like I said in the previous episodes, we are moving on from the primordial to the next level, which would be a higher consciousness. That would be what we consider the real world reality, things of that nature, and we move on to the basic middle part of the Axis Mundi, whereas before it was the lower realms of the Axis Mundi, which were the primordial. And to be more well, to be more precise, I basically could have done more on that, but we're already high up into the episode, so for me, I'm going to have to move on from the primordial and discuss this. But I the reason why I'm doing it in the format that I'm doing it today, which you'll hear here in a minute, is because Mr. Robot, someone who's always on my show, has a hard time understanding the principles behind this primordial, um, the word primordial, and what I'm discussing here. So um, I'm wanting. He keeps bringing up. I need to, you know, show or provide sources, which that's something that I wanted to prevent from myself from doing here. I wanted to make it more of a discussion reading kind of thing without getting into this whole show your sources thing. I kind of find that offensive because I've noticed that it's actually happening more with millennials these days, where that's their big thing. Where's your source? Well, learning is about you doing your own research. I give you information. If you want, if you become curious in it, then it's your place to do the research. If you don't believe anything I say, check it out for yourself. Um, but I figured I'm going to do at least one episode where I pull out some resources and stuff when I go to this part of the discussion. I did send some sources to him on the Element where I had previously done my research so that he could get a little idea of what's going on. A lot of the stuff that was discussed had to do with the role of mud in creation. That had to do with Greek myths that speak of like a primordial chaos, Phoenician cosmology that was done by Sanachinathian, who's an ancient author. And he described Mot as arising from the inner actions of wind and primordial waters. Um, so he represents both the mud and the first principle of life, which is what a lot of philosophers in ancient Greece discuss. Uh, so with that, that's something that I want. I posted all of that. Erebus is another one, and then you get into stuff like Nyx and Astraeus and Aeus or Eus, however you want to pronounce it. Uh, Heraclitus also talked about it, and so did Empedocles, I believe. Um, the it's a philosophy. It's a creation that involves creation and how it involves the interplay of like the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And then there's also love and strife. It gets into all of that. Then the watery compound. That's where where a lot of it gets confusing to them, and that could be an allegory for the mixing of elements, which leads to life. And that also brings you into alchemy, which a lot of people don't understand. There's alchemy that we hear about today, but then there's ancient alchemy as well, which goes farther back than what a lot of people realize. There's a lot of alchemy when it comes to religious text. It's just that we're so used to reading religious text and believing it 100%, we don't recognize the alchemy involved in it or the esoteric meanings behind the symbolism and stuff of that nature. So, with that, I'm done. I'm going to do my reading, and hopefully, you guys enjoy it. Now, this is going to be a lot more technical. It's going to break into to a deeper level of understanding within the material world. So, when you hear this, you're going to hear a lot of things that are straight up linguistics related. It's straight up linguistics coming out of words that you're speaking, not the words you write down, but the words that are coming out of your mouth and how you're saying them. So take that into consideration when you hear this. So let me do my countdown, and I will start. So 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Weave. Today, we are going to go into another part of the Cosmic Weave. Before, I was doing the primordial beginnings, and today I am not going to go there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this part, or I'm going to consider this part conscious beginnings. This is where we go from discussing the primordial beginnings of the cosmic weave into the conscious beginnings of the cosmic weave. And with that being said, I'm going to get into this reading. Now, this reading is going to be a lot more technical. It's going to involve linguistics and how words are related to a lot of the things that we've discussed with the primordial beginnings. But now we go into the consciousness, and we go from the lower realms of the axis mundi into the center of the axis mundi, where consciousness becomes reality in our realm, well, in the cosmos period. So let me go ahead and get started with this. So now, the Proto-Indo-European root H2 ENH1 is reconstructed to mean to breathe or to blow. When rendered into English spelling using conventional transliteration, it becomes an. The initial H2 is a laryngeal consonant, a type of sound present in the Proto-Indo-European language that typically does not survive as a distinct consonant in most descendant languages. However, it often influenced surrounding vowels, particularly by coloring or lengthening them, and in this case, contributes to the vowel A, seen in later derivatives. The core of the root is an, which carries the primary meaning relating to breath or air movement. The final H1 is another laryngeal that typically disappears without a trace in daughter languages, though it may also subtly influence adjacent vowels. Altogether, this root appears in a signified transliteration as an, representing the ancient sense of breath, air, or the animating force of life. This root has produced a wide variety of words in the Indo-European language family. In ancient Greek, the root appears as the word animus, meaning wind. In Latin, it contributes to the word animus. Animos is actually what it says in ancient Greek. Now, in Latin, it contributes to the word animus, which means soul or mind, and is associated with the breath of life. In Sanskrit, a closely related verb, anatai, means he breathes, showing a direct preservation of the original meaning. In English, Although the root is not directly visible, it survives through Latin borrowings in words such as animal and animate, which imply having life or breath. These derivatives across languages demonstrate how a single ancient root associated with breathing evolved into a term representing soul, mind, spirit, and the vital essence of living beings in many different cultures and linguistic transitions. In in laryngeal, no, a laryngeal consonant in the context of Proto-Indo-European linguistics refers to a class of hypothetical sounds that were part of the ancient language's phonetic system, but did not appear directly in most of the daughter languages that evolved from it. These consonants are not attested in written form since pre-Indo-European predates writing, but their existence is inferred from consistent patterns of vowel behaviors and other phonological effects in descendant languages like Greek, Sanskrit, Hittite, and Latin. The word laryngeal itself was borrowed from anatomy, referring to sounds produced in the larynx or throat. However, linguistics do not necessarily agree on the exact pronunciation or phonetic quality of these laryngeals, these laryngeals, these laryngeals, yeah, the phonetic quality of these laryngeals. They are simply called laryngeals because they are thought to have originated deep in the vocal tract, possibly resembling modern glottal stops. Pharyngeal uh, fricatives, yeah, pharyngeal fricatives, or other throat-based consonants. There are traditionally three main laryngeal consonants reconstructed in pre-Indo-European, written as H1, H2, and H3. Each of these have had distinct effects on surrounding vowels. H1 is considered a neutral or plain laryngeal and often leaves little to no trace except for lengthening or preserving a vowel. H2 is thought to have had a rough or voiceless pharyngeal sound, and it tends to color adjacent vowels into an A-like quality. H3 may have been voiced and had a tendency to round surrounding vowels, turning them into an O-like quality. These laryngeals are important because even though they often vanished in the daughter languages, they left behind predictable traces. For instance, if a vowel appears unexpectedly or a certain pattern of vowel coloration occurs across Indo-European languages, it can often be traced back to the influence of a lost laryngeal. In Greek and Sanskrit, for example, scholars notice that certain roots seem to preserve an unexplicable vowel that isn't present in related Latin or Germanic words. These discrepancies were eventually explained by positing the existence of laryngeal consonants. Interesting, or interestingly, in Hittite, a language of the ancient Anatolia that belongs to the Indo-European family, some of these laryngeals appear to have been preserved in writing form as actual consonants, which helped confirm their theoretical reconstruction. For example, the Hittite word hasa, meaning hearth, corresponds to Latin ara and Greek hestia, and provides evidence of a laryngeal in the pre-Indo-European root. Laryngeal consonants were a set of now visible sounds in Proto-Indo-European that played a significant structural role in how vowels behave and evolved. Though no longer present in most modern languages, their ghostly influence can still be detected in the vowel systems, root forms, and phonological developments that trace back to the earliest stages of Indo-European speech. Pharyngeal fricatives are a type of consonantal sound produced by constricting the airflow in the pharynx, which is the part of the vocal tract located just above the larynx and behind the oral cavity. These sounds are relatively rare among the world's languages and are considered some of the most complex and difficult to articulate because they require precise control over a deep region of the throat. A fricative sound, by definition, is created when air is forced through a narrow constriction in the vocal tracts, causing turbulent airflow. In the case of pharyngeal fricatives, this constriction occurs in the pharyngeal cavity. The airflow passes through a narrow space between the root of the tongue and the back wall of the pharynx, creating a sound that is often described as raspy, harsh, or hollow. These fricatives do not involve the lips, teeth, or front of the mouth, which is what makes them acoustically and articulatorily distinct from more familiar sounds. These are the S or F, or sounds like the S or F. Now, these are two more pharyngeal fricatives recognized in the International Phonetic Alphabet. That's the IPA. The first is the voiceless pharyngeal fricative, represented by the symbol H, or it looks like an H. And the second is a voice pharyngeal fricative, represented by the symbol that looks like a backwards question mark. Now, in the voiceless version, the vocal cords remain apart and do not vibrate during the articulation. In the voiced version, the vocal cords vibrate as air passes through the pharyngeal constriction. These sounds are most famously found in Semitic languages. For instance, in Arabic, the voiceless pharyngeal fricative that looks like an H appears in words such as halal, which is permissible, and hub, which is love. While the voiced pharyngeal fricative, which is in the shape of a backwards question mark without the dot at the bottom, appears in words such as Arab, which means Arab, and an, which is AYN, and that means I. Both sounds are phonetic in Arabic, meaning they distinguish words from each other. Similarly, some dialects of Hebrew, as well as other Afro-Asiatic languages like Tigrinya or Tigrinya and Amharic, use these sounds as part of their core phonological inventory. Producing pharyngeal fricatives accurately requires a deep retraction of the tongue root towards the rear wall of the pharynx, along with an overall narrowing of the pharyngeal space. For speakers of languages that do not include these sounds, imitating them can be quite difficult because the necessary tongue movements are unfamiliar and not used in the articulation of typical Indo-European consonants. This is one reason why learners of Arabic, for example, often struggle with these fricatives, as the muscles involved are rarely exercised in other language contexts. Pharyngeal fricatives are also interesting from a historical linguistics standpoint. Some linguists have speculated that the Proto-Semitic language had a wider range of pharyngeal and emphatic consonants that are preserved in all modern Semitic languages. Additionally, in the study of ancient phonology and Proto-Indo-European reconstruction, pharyngeal-like sounds have sometimes been hypothesized in relationship to the mysterious laryngeals, though such theories remain speculative and not widely accepted in their pharyngeal interpretations. Acoustically, pharyngeal fricatives are characterized as a low-frequency energy and a less defined spectral shape compared to more common fricatives like the S symbol or the symbol that looks like an S but it kind of goes more into an L shape. This makes them sound somewhat muffled or throaty. Because of the lower resonance and the difficult articulatory setting, these sounds are more prone to variation, even among native speakers, and are sometimes replaced or approximated by other sounds in colloquial or non-standard dialects. Colloquial or non-standard dialects. Pharyngeal fricatives are produced by narrowing the pharyngeal cavity, creating a friction-like sound deep in the throat. Though rare, they are vital phonemes in several Semitic and Afro-Asiatic languages, and their unique articulatory setting makes them challenging for non-native speakers. Their study offers insight into the breadth of human phonetic capability and the rich diversity of sound systems across the world's languages. Lengthening or preserving a vowel refers to a process by which a vowel sound is held or sustained for a longer duration in spoken language. This can change the meaning of a word entirely in many languages where vowel length is uh, ph- uh, phonemic is phonemic. For example, in some languages, a short vowel and its corresponding long vowel may distinguish two entirely different words. The process of lengthening can occur naturally due to stress, speech rhythm, or historical phonological developments. In certain cases, a vowel may be preserved, meaning it resists deletion, reduction, or merging with adjacent sounds over time, usually due to its prominence in a word or syllable, or due to phonetic environment. Vowel preservation is often associated with linguistic conservatism in specific word positions, such as roots or stressed syllables. Coloring adjacent vowels involve the alteration of a vowel's quality due to the influence of a nearby sound, especially a consonant. This is often observed when a consonant with a particular place of articulation causes the vowel next to it to shift in quality. A common example is the effect of a rhotic or R-like consonant on a preceding vowel, often resulting in what is called vowel R coloring. In this case, the vowel becomes centralized or retroflexed, and its quality changes enough that it is no longer purely a vowel, but acquires some of the resonant characteristics of the consonant. Similarly, velar or palatal consonants can front or raise a neighboring vowel, modifying its tone or resonance in subtle but important ways. These effects, though often gradual, can lead to long-term phonological change in a language. Rounding surrounding vowels refers to the phenomenon in which the position of the lips is altered to create a more rounded shape, typically due to influence from nearby sounds. This can involve vowels that are naturally rounded, spreading their lips rounding feature to adjust vowels that are otherwise unrounded. In many cases, the presence of a rounded consonant or a back vowel with lip rounding can cause a neighboring vowel to undergo a similar rounding articulation, even if this was not its original state. Over time, these types of articulatory adjustments can result in a new vowel in new vowel categories or allophones forming within a language. Allophones or allophones. Rounding influences the acoustic properties of vowels, often lowering their second format frequency, which gives them a more back or closed sound quality. As a result, the overall vowel system of a language may shift in response to consistent rounding influences, contributing to vowel harmony systems or broad phonological tendencies. Each of these processes, lengthened or preserving vowels, coloring adjacent vowels, and rounding surrounding vowels, are part of a broader system of phonological interaction where sounds influence one another through contact, proximity, or historical change. These subtle modifications can accumulate and, over generations, reshape the sound structure of entire languages. There are several widely attested cognates across Indo-European languages that reflect the concept of brightness, height, or divinity. And they appear in many branches of the language family. These words often originate from reconstructed Proto-Indo-European roots associated with light, sky, or heavenly beings. The number of such cognates is difficult to pinpoint exactly because each root may spawn multiple derivatives across dozens of languages. However, several key roots have yielded dozens, if not hundreds, of cognates in total. One of the most important reconstructed roots is the Proto-Indo-European root that can be written out as Deiwos, or Deiwos, which means celestial, shining, or godlike. From this root, a large family of words appear in languages such as Latin, where Deiwos becomes Deus, Deus, meaning God. In Greek, it becomes Zeus, a sky god. In Sanskrit, it appears as Deva, which also means God or shining ones, or shining one. The same root is present in the Old Norse word Tyr, Tyr, and Lithuanian Dievas, Dievas, both of which are sky or divine figures. The total number of distinct but related words stemming from this root alone across Indo-European languages is well over a dozen, likely over 30 if all dialectic variations are included. Another major root is Deu, Dyeu, which also signifies sky, daylight, or brightness. This root gives rise to Greek Dios, which is Dios, as in Dies Pater. Latin Jupiter from Diu Pater, which is Dyeu. And in Greek, it's Dios, and both of them spell pater, Pater. And then that means Sky Father. Sanskrit is Dyaus, which is Dyaus, which means a sky god. And derivatives like day in English. Its descendants appear in at least 10 major Indo-European languages. The number of cognates or of cognate terms from this root again likely exceeds 24, considering primary and derivative terms. The root Bahel or Bahel, which is spelled Bhel, which carries meanings related to brightness, shining, or whiteness, also has a wide reach. It shows up in Greek as phos, which means light, and they spell phos, Phos. In Latin as fulgure or fulger, which is Fulgere, which means to shine, and in English as bright, blaze, and bleach. While it has many metaphoric extensions, its core semantic field includes luminosity and elevation. Over time, this root has generated numerous words across Indo-European languages, potentially more than 50 distinct terms when including compounds and derivatives. The root, the root Luke, which is Lewk, meaning light or brightness, is also very productive. It appears in Latin as lux, Lux, in Greek as leukos, Leukos, which means white, in Sanskrit as rohita, Rohita, which means reddish light, and in English through words like lucid and illuminate. This root, in its various forms, appears across the Indo-Iranian, Italic, Hellenic, and German branches, resulting in dozens of cognates. If one aggregates if one aggregates all such roots that share the themes of brightness, sky, divinity, or high places, such as Dyu, Dyeu, Diwas, which is Deiwos, Behel, which is Bhel, and Luke, which is Lewk, and others like Ner, Ner, which means nor or man or vital force, and Mu, Mei, which means to shine, or Og, Agh, which means to drive or lead, often linked with divine inspiration or movement. The number of total cognates expands to well over 100 across the Indo-European family. Many of these terms not only reflect physical phenomena like light or the sky, but also carry metaphorical or religious implications, becoming terms for gods, heaven, or cosmic order. The name Kalpia, Kalpia, appears to derive from or be related to the ancient Sanskrit word kalpa, Kalpa. In Sanskrit, kalpa, Kalpa, means able, fit, or competent, and it also carries connotations of proficiency and expertise. In addition to its basic meaning, kalpa holds a significant place in the Hindu cosmology, where it refers to an immense period of time known as Eon, Eon. A kalpa, in this sense, represents a full cycle of cosmic creation and dissolution, underscoring the cyclical nature of existence. A related name, Kalpita, Kalpita, also from Sanskrit, means imagined, created, or conceived in thought. These meanings suggest that Kalpia could be interpreted as a name rooted in ideas of creative ability, conceptual formation, and the vast temporal rhythms of the universe. The underlying linguistic theme is one of formation, readiness, and a cosmic capacity for manifestation. The name Ba'u, Baau, has several origins depending on cultural context. In Phoenician mythology, Ba'u is associated with the night and is considered the consort of the wind god called Pius. Together, they are said to be the parents of Aeon, Aion, and Protagon, the first mortal beings. This myth positions Beu as an elemental figure in cosmology, associated with primal forces and the beginning of human existence. In Sumerian tradition, a goddess named Ba'u, also known as Baba or Babu, was revered as a deity of healing and midwifery, further emphasizing maternal and restorative attributes linked to the name. Beyond mythology, the surname Ba'u has Germanic roots, where it originated from an old High German word meaning the cultivation of fields, or it serves as a description for someone who lived in a prominent structure. In Chinese naming traditions, a similar name pronounced as Bau, Bao, or Ba'u, Bau, can mean abalone, among other meanings, and the name appears in some Chinese-speaking populations as a family name. Additionally, Ba'u is a surname found in Cambodia, where it has some geographical concentration. The name therefore carries multiple layers of significance depending on its linguistics and cultural framework, ranging from divine and mythological associations to more grounded meanings of agriculture and dwelling. The name Aeon, which is Aeon, originates from ancient Greek, where the word aeon, spelled Aion, referred to an age, a lifetime, or an epoch. This word itself was derived from an earlier form, Awan, Aiwon, which in turn traces back to an older Proto-Indo-European root, often reconstructed as H2EYU or H2EYWEN, meaning vital force, life, or long duration. In classical usage, aeon came to signify more than just a unit of time. It referred to the unbounded or eternal, a span of existence so vast that it transcended typical human understanding of time. In philosophical and mystical traditions, particularly in Hellenistic thought and Gnostic cosmology, Aeon became personified as an emanation of the divine. In these systems, aeons were not merely units of time, but spiritual entities or principles that emanated from a supreme source, each representing aspects of divine thought, light, and order. These spiritual eons were considered timeless, existing outside the limits of ordinary chronology, embodying the eternal unfolding of the cosmos. In later Christian theological and esoteric traditions, the word aeon was sometimes used to describe dispensations or epochs in the divine plan, often implying a cosmic significance to each age of existence. The notion of the aeon as an eternal cycle became important in early mystical writings, where it represented the bridge between the temporal world and a more fundamental eternal reality. In modern usage, the term aeon continues to convey a sense of vast, unmeasurable time, often used in poetic or spiritual contexts to evoke the majesty of the cosmos or the eternity of existence. The name Protogonus is composed of two distinct ancient Greek root words, each carrying a powerful and symbolic meaning that reflects the early cosmological and mythological concepts. The first part, proto, comes from the Greek word protos, which means first or foremost. This word stems from Proto Indo European root reconstructed as per, meaning before or in front. Over time, per developed into various forms across Indo European languages, often connotating priority, leadership, or an original position in space or time. In Greek, protos came to mean the first in a sequence, the most important, or the origin point of something. It was used to denote not only physical precedence, but also metaphysical primacy, such as the first deity, the original being, or the primal cause. The second part, gonus, is derived from the Greek word gonos, which means birth, offspring, or generation. This word comes from the Proto-Indo-European word gen, Gen, which referred to begetting, producing, or giving birth. This is the same root that gave rise to words in many Indo-European languages, such as genus, genus in Latin, kin in English, and janati, Janati, in Sanskrit, all of which relate to birth, origin, or family. In Greek usage, gonos emphasize not only the act of generation, but also the result, offspring, progeny, or a new emergence from an earlier source. When combined, protogonus literally means firstborn or first offspring. It was a name often given to primordial beings in mythological traditions, such as the Orphic creation deity who was believed to emerge from the cosmic egg at the beginning of time. In this context, protogonus symbolizes the very first emergence of life, spirit, or consciousness from the chaotic void or the primordial unity. He is often seen as a personification of the initial spark of being, the one who contains within himself the seed of all future creation. The name Genos and Genea both stem from deeply ancient linguistic roots connected to birth, family, origin, and lineage. They are part of a wide network of words in ancient Greek and other Indo-European languages that center around the concept of generating, producing, and belonging. The name Genos comes from the Greek word genus, which is spelled Genos, which means race, kind, stock, offspring, or family. It refers to a group of people who are linked by a shared origin or descent, often within a clan, tribe, or extended family. This word traces its origin to the Proto-Indo-European word genh1, which meant to give birth. to beget, or to produce. This root gave rise to many related words across Indo-European languages. For example, the Latin genus, meaning kind or type, the Sanskrit Janus, Janas, people or kin, the Old English sen, or kin, whichever way you want to spell it, Cynn, which became kin, Kin, and the German Geschlecht, meaning, which is spelled Gschlecht, meaning lineage or gender. In Greek, genos retained this ancestral meaning, emphasizing both the act of generating and the result of generation, such as descendants, bloodlines, and categories of being. It was often used in philosophical, genealogical, and even cosmological contexts to describe types or classes of things that shared a common origin. Thus, genos as a name evokes the sense of a foundational group, a tribe, or lineage that stems from a common progenitor. The name Genya is the feminine counterpart and closely related in meaning. It derives from the Greek word genia, which means generation, family, or descendant. Like genos, it also traces back to the Proto-Indo-European root GENH1 and emphasizes the concept of birth and lineage, but Genya typically refers more specifically to the idea of a generation in time, a succession of people who are connected by ancestry. It reflects the passing of life from one group to the next and is often used in historical, mythological, and genealogical discussions to describe dynasties, ancestral lines, and the continuity of family over time. Together, these names represent variations of the same ancient concept that life, identity, and belonging are rooted in shared origin and reproductive continuity. Genos tends to emphasize kind or type in a broader or categorical sense, while Genya focuses more on the succession of generations, the thread that ties the present to the past through ancestry. Both reflect a worldview in which birth, descent, and family were not only biological facts, but also sacred principles that shared the order of society, the structure of the cosmos, and the destiny of individuals. Root words and lexical borrowing are two essential concepts in the study of language, especially in historical linguistics and etymology. Understanding these ideas help explain how languages evolve over time, where their words come from, and how they influence one another. A root word is the most basic form of a word, carrying the core meaning from which other words can be built. In many languages, especially those that are part of the Indo-European family, root words can be traced back to thousands of years to a shared ancestral language. For example, in ancient Indo-European languages, there was a root that meant to bear or to carry, which was sometimes like a beher, spelled Bher. This root gave rise to many different words in different daughter languages. In Latin, it became fur, which is Ferre, which led to English words like transfer, confer, and refer. In Greek, it appears in pharaoh, Phero, which also means to carry. In Sanskrit, it shows up as Bharati, Bharati, meaning he carries. The root word therefore serves as the foundation on which more complex words are built through prefixes, suffixes, and other modifications. These root forms often encapsulate a basic concept such as movement, perception, emotion, or physical action, and they can be remarkably persistent across time and geography. Lexical borrowing refers to the process by which one language takes words from another language and incorporates them into its own vocabulary. This happens for many reasons through trade, conquest, migration, colonization, or cultural influence. When people speaking different languages come into contact, they often adopt words from each other, especially if one group introduces new ideas, technologies, or practices. For instance, English has borrowed extensively from French, Latin, Greek, Norse, and many other languages over the centuries. The word ballad comes from French, which in turn took it from Italian. The word algebra comes from Arabic, and yoga comes from Sanskrit. Borrowed words may eventually become so thoroughly integrated into the recipient language that native speakers do not even realize they came from elsewhere. Root words and lexical borrowing work together in shaping the vocabulary of a language. Sometimes a borrowed word is adopted in full, other times, the, other times only the root of a borrowed word is taken and then adapted using the native language's grammar. There are also instances where borrowed roots are used to coin new words by combining them with existing prefixes or suffixes in the receiving language. For example, many scientific and medical terms in English use Greek or Latin roots combined with English grammatical forms, such as biology, from Greek bios, which means life, and logos, which means study, or aquarium, from Latin, which aqua means water, and the suffix arium, a place for. The study of root words helps trace the ancestry of languages and shows how certain core ideas persist across cultures and epochs. Lexical borrowing reveals the dynamic, ever-changing nature of languages and highlights the historical interactions between peoples and civilizations. Together, these concepts offer insight into the richness and complexity of linguistic development. The word bacillus, often rendered in classical Greek as Basilius, meaning king or sovereign, has a complex and somewhat debated etymology. While it is a well-attested term in ancient Greek literature, its precise origins are not entirely clear, but several linguistic pathways in comparative roots have been explored to explain its emergence. The earliest form of the word appears in Mycenaean Greek, written in the Linear B script as ga si re u, which referred to a king in the full political sense, but rather to a king, no, which referred not to a king in the full political sense, but rather to a kind of local chieftain or official, possibly a craftsman, leader, or administrator. This form, GWASILEUS, or GWASILEUSOS, as reconstructed by scholars, shows how the term evolved into the later classical form Basilius. The shift from the initial labiovelar sound represented as GW or KW to the billable B sound in later Greek is a phonetic change that happened during the transition from Mycenaean to classical dialects. The root of Basilius has no direct, uncontested Proto-Indo-European origin, which makes it somewhat unique among Greek titles of power. However, several possibilities have been proposed. One hypothesis connects it to a root related to stepping or walking, possibly from a Proto-Indo-European root like GWEM, meaning to go or to come, suggesting the idea of a leader who goes forth or stands before others. However, this connection remains speculative. Another theory proposes a pre-Greek, non-Indo-European origin for the word. This would mean that the term was part of the substrate language spoken in the region before Greek became dominant and was later absorbed and adapted into earlier Greek speech. This possibility is supported by the irregular phonological pattern of the word, which does not fit neatly into the expected morphological structure of Indo-European derivations. The Mycenaean form quasi-ra'u might reflect such a pre-Greek origin. It is also worth noting that the ending "use" is a common Greek morphological suffix used to denote a person connected to a certain role, action, or status. For example, notus means sailor, from nos meaning ship. In this light, Basilius would structurally mean a person who embodies or performs a particular function, even if the word basi is not clearly defined. While Basilius became the standard Greek term for king, especially during the Archaic and Classical periods, its etymological roots are not definitively Indo-European. The word likely came from an earlier stage of Greek language, perhaps even borrowed or inherited from a pre-Greek substratum, and evolved over time through phonological and morphological adaptations. The suffix "-ius" fits well with Greek linguistic patterns, but the base element "basi" or "gussi" remains uncertain in origin, though its ultimate though it ultimately came to be associated with rulership and authority within the Greek world. Labiovelar labiovelar sounds are a type of consonant that combines two distinct places of articulation: the lips (labial) and the soft palate or velum (velar). This means that when producing a labiovelar sound, the speaker simultaneously engages with both the lips and the back part of the tongue, which presses against or comes close to the soft palate. In essence, these are doubly articulated sounds with both labial and velar features happening at the same time. In linguistics terms, the classic labiovelar consonants in reconstructed Proto-Indo-European are usually presented as a group of three: the voiced labiovelar, the voiceless labiovelar, and the aspired voiced labiovelar. These are written by linguistics as GW, KW, and GWH, respectively. These are not simply sequences. These are not simply sequences of two separate sounds, such as a velar followed by a labial, but rather are single consonantal sounds that involve both areas of articulation in one unified motion. To understand this more clearly, consider how KW would have sounded. This sound would have this sound would be produced by rounding the lips, as in making a W sound, while simultaneously articulating a K at the back of the mouth. The result is a consonant that is similar to the modern English Q, which is QU sound, Q sound, as in the word quick, where the Q and the U together form a kind of labiovelar combination. These labiovelar consonants were an important part of the Proto-Indo-European consonant inventory, and they played a significant role in the evolution of many Indo-European daughter languages. However, not all descendant languages retained them in their original form. In fact, different branches of the Indo-European family treated these sounds differently, often breaking them down into either simple velar or simple labials. For example, in Greek, labiovelar often became labial sounds. The Proto-Indo-European GW sound often became a B sound. A good example of this can be seen in the transformation of the Proto-Indo-European root GWENH2, meaning woman, which became Gune, Gune, in Greek, showing the GW becoming a G and the vowel reflecting Greek changes. In Latin, by contrast, labiovelar often became simple B, or GU sounds, as seen in the word gutor, meaning four, from Proto-Indo-European KW etwars. In the Germanic languages, including English, some labiovellars were preserved longer or shifted in different ways. The Proto-Indo-European KW often became a HW or W sound, depending on the context and specific daughter language. In the case of the English word watt, this traces back to a root involving the KW sound. The lost transformation or simplification of labiovelar in the various Indo-European language is one of the factors linguistics use when trying to reconstruct ancestral forms of words and trace patterns of phonetic change over time. Their presence in the proto-language and their predictable transformations in daughter languages serve as important evidence in the study of historical linguistics and language evolution. Thus, labiovelar sounds are key elements in understanding how ancient speech systems were articulated and how the sounds of words evolved differently across regions and time. They reflect the intricate mechanisms of sound change and the way physical articulation shapes the development of language. The word theos, known from ancient Greeks as meaning God or deity, has an uncertain but much discussed etymological background. It does not have a clear and direct origin from a securely reconstructed Proto-Indo-European word in the way some other Greek words do. But scholars have proposed several possible connections based on the sound patterns and semantic fields that reflect ideas of divine power, appearance, or shining qualities. One suggestion ties theos to a Proto-Indo-European root associated with vision or shining. This idea connects it to the root that underlies verbs for seeing or appearing, such as the root that gives rise to words like thea, Thea, meaning a view or a spectacle in Greek. The suggestion is that the idea of divinity may have originally been linked to a being that appears, is seen, or shines, an object of awe and reverence, possibly celestial in nature. Another proposed connection is to the Proto-Indo-European root that meant to evoke or place, as in the setting of a god in a position of reverence or ritual. This would frame theos as a concept tied to worship and ritual placement, something established or installed in sacred practice. However, this theory has less phonetic and semantic support than others. There is also a hypothesis that relates theos to a verbal root associated with the idea of doing or placing, implying a being who acts or exerts power. This would match well with the functional role of the god as an active force or mover in the universe. However, none of these proposed roots, whether associated with shining, placing, seeing, or acting, are universally agreed upon, and some scholars believe Theos may be a loan word from a pre-Greek substrate language. This would mean it entered the Greek lexicon from a language that was spoken in the region before Indo-European speakers arrived. The presence of related terms in other Indo-European language is not strong enough to confirm a common ancestor for the word in that family. In short, while theos is one of the most important words in Greek religious vocabulary, its exact etymology remains uncertain. Scholars have proposed roots tied to shining, seeing, placing, invoking, or acting, but none have been definitively proven. It may ultimately represent a blend of Indo-European linguistics influence and older regional linguistic traditions that were integrated into early Greek religious thought. And with that, I am done with my reading. I hope you guys did enjoy that. I would like to ask you, if you did like this stream, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Love to hear your feedback. It doesn't look like we've had any comments, so I think everything is okay. I can just walk away from this stream and be done with it. I hope you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I hope you guys have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day it is. And with that, I will go ahead and end the stream. Hope to see you later. You guys have a good night.